Since last summer, I've been struggling with golfer's elbow, even though I don't play golf. There's usually tennis players will get different kind of elbow injuries. Tennis elbow is more on the outside. Golfer's elbow is more on the inside, but us tennis players still get it. So last summer, I've been struggling with it, and I think it's because I switched rackets. Let me go get some rackets. So I got a bunch of rackets here. So for years, I used this. This is a Babolat Pure Drive Plus Tour. It was originally the Pure Drive the Pure Drive Plus since like 2000. Then they started coming out with the Tour version, which is a little bit heavier. It's 315 grams, and I would put, see here, I would put lead tape to weight it up a little bit. Decently heavy racket, not the heaviest out there, but it had some weight to it. A few years ago, I decided after 20 years, it was time for a change. And I switched to this racket. This is a Yonex V-Core 98. Great racket, but it destroyed my arm. The Pure Drive was 315 grams and I had weight on it. This thing is 305 and I didn't put any weight on it. Great feeling racket, but it's what started causing my arm issues on the inside. Fast forward to earlier this year, I realized, hey, let me switch rackets. Even though I like this racket, I gotta do something for the pain in my arm. So then I briefly tried this, which is a great racket as well. It's the Yonex V-Core Pro 97H, which is a heavier version. It's 330 grams unstrung. Pretty heavy, and it's very easy on the arm. Very soft, flexible racket. Great racket, but I don't know. It wasn't the right racket for me. I have now settled on these. These are the Yonex E-Zone 98 Tour. Now they make a regular E-Zone 98, which is 305 grams, but I got these because the Tours are 315 grams, which are the same as my Pure Drive Tours, 315. I also added, if you can see, weight to these. So it's very similar weight-wise to what I used to use, Pure Drive Plus Tour, and never in my entire life have I ever had any arm issues. My thinking is that this racket, it's relatively comfortable, similar weight. I like the racket, so I'm hoping it doesn't hurt my arm like the lighter racket did. I'm also trying out a few different strings today. This is the Poly Tour Pro that I've been using and I really like. It's a solid polyester with pretty good comfort. This one I've been wanting to try for a while. This string is the Poly Tour Rev, which they say is a little bit firmer but supposed to get a little more bite on the ball. I'm going to try them out today. My wife, we're gonna go hit a little bit at the club we work out at, just to touch a little bit more on my arm issue. So I finally broke down and started going to see a doctor. You know, after rest and trying to come back, it just kept flaring back up. So I'm finally getting it professionally treated from a doctor here in the Houston area. I think he calls it myofascial release. It's a lot of like really deep tissue techniques, mobility, and I feel like it's helping, but the doctor wants me to go out and hit relatively easily, 50-60%. He said, you know, there might still be a little bit of pain, but it's just to see how the treatment is working. That's what we're gonna do today, and I'm going to hit with these two rackets, try out the strings, see how they feel, as long as just see how the arm feels, test it out. So that's what we're going to do today. The shoes I'm currently rocking, the New Balances. They're cool. They're really comfortable. This is the first pair I've gotten, and I like them. Okay, we are back from playing. We'll talk a little bit about these two strings. We've got Poly Tour Pro, Poly Tour Rev. Trying to decide which one I want to use, so I'm going to do a little bit of a quick review style, grade each one of them, see where I'm at. So before I get into it, I want to say these are both really good strings. I strung them both at 52 pounds on the E-Zone Tour 98s. Identical tension, and these play actually really similar to each other. First, let's start with Poly Tour Pro. This is an incredibly popular string. A lot of people use it. Some of the pros that I found with it that I really enjoyed was it's very comfortable and easy on the arm, which is important because I'm coming off an arm injury, so I need something that's not going to kill my arm. I used to use RPM Blast for years, which is a little bit on the stiffer side. I think my days of using that stuff are over because last racket killed my arm with RPM Blast in it. So comfort and ease on your arm are one of the pros of this string. It's very comfortable for a polyester. Feels like it makes the sweet spot even bigger if that's possible, but one of the really big pros of this is it's comfortable. It's also very low powered, which is pretty normal for polyester strings, but you can really take big cuts at the ball, full swings, and not worry about overhitting with it. So it's very much more of a control-oriented, low-powered polyester, pretty typical. Good if you like to really take big cuts of the ball, try to hit the ball hard, which I usually try to hit the ball too hard, so that's good for me. Some of the cons with it is the string tension maintenance. The string tension felt like it dropped pretty quickly. I played for about an hour and a half switching between the two, and I could almost tell that the tension was dropping just a little bit, so that's really not very long playing for the tension to go ahead and start dropping. So I don't know, I'll need to probably hit a little more, but it felt like the string tension maintenance is not great on this. It already felt a little bit looser when I started hitting with it. That was really the only con. Other than that, I like the string. It's a pretty standard polyester, comfortable. So let's give it some rapid fire scores. Power, I give it a 4, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because, you know, it's a polyester. It's supposed to be underpowered. Spin, I give it a 7. Isn't the most spin friendly string, but it's definitely not hard to get spin with it. Comfort, I give it a 9 out of 10. Very comfortable string, especially for a polyester. Control, I give it an 8. Tension maintenance, I give it a 5 for a total of 33 points. Poly Tour Pro gets 33. Now let's talk about its brother, Poly Tour Rev. Poly Tour Rev, honestly, they played pretty similar. There's not a big difference in these strings. Small enough for you to notice at least. So the pros of Poly Tour Rev is it is, again, pretty comfortable. Not quite as comfortable as Poly Tour Pro, but it's a very comfortable string. Pretty easy on the arm. You get decent bite on the ball. They kind of market it as a textured string, kind of like an RPM type string that's supposed to really grip and bite the ball. And you can tell there's a little more grip and bite on the ball than Poly Tour Pro, but not like some crazy amount where you feel like you're not supposed to put that much spin on the ball. So decent bite on the ball. It is low powered just like Poly Tour Pro, so you can really take big cuts at the ball and not feel like you're gonna hit it over the fence, which happens, let's face it. I also felt like it held its tension better than Poly Tour Pro as well. I only hit with these switching back and forth for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but felt like this one held its tension better than Poly Tour Pro. Some of the cons were a very muted feeling string, which is good for someone like me with, you know, the arm injury I'm coming off of, but I can see how some people might find it a little too dead or a little too muted feeling. So that could potentially be a con. Rapid fire scores for Poly Tour Rev. Power, give it a 5 out of 10. Spin, gonna give it an 8. Comfort, 8. Control, 9. Tension maintenance, 8. Total, 39. If we go off of the scores, Poly Tour Rev is beating Poly Tour Pro just based off the scores I gave it, but still undecided. Let me tell you why. Whenever you get injured, you're always afraid to re-injure yourself. That's why I'm still considering Poly Tour Pro, because it is softer and a little bit easier on the arm, albeit not a ton, but it still is. So I've still got that in the back of my mind, but I really like both of these strings. They play very similarly. There's just slight differences. You know, the differences I mentioned are very minimal. It's not like one feels way different than the other. They're similar playing strings. Honestly, I could probably choose either of these and enjoy both of them. You know, me being an OCD tennis player, I'm trying to make sure I make the right choice. I think they both look good,
in the racket. Yeah, I'm still undecided as of now, but they're both really great strings, honestly. If you're trying to choose between these two, you can't really go wrong. I know that's like a total, like, mainstream answer, but they're both great strings. Yeah, good strings. I'm a little worried about this tension maintenance with Poly Tour Pro. I think I need a little more time with it to see. Both very, very good strings. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm still undecided, even though Rev beats Poly Tour Pro in the scoring. We're gonna see which one I end up with. You can see my stencil wore out way quicker on Poly Tour Rev.